There's a silence in every city, not the absence of noise, but the kind that hides beneath it. It hums below the sirens, the footsteps, the electric pulse of screens. You can feel it late at night when the streets are still lit but empty, when your reflection in a window feels more real than your own voice. It's the silence that arrives when the world speaks too much, and you, without realizing, stop answering. The city has a strange way of shaping sound. It amplifies everything except the truth. You start tuning yourself to survive. You walk faster, think louder, scroll longer, until the noise becomes a kind of anesthesia. But underneath the motion, a quiet ache remains. The awareness that your soul is whispering and no one, not even you, is listening. Silence here doesn't mean peace. It means withdrawal. The slow retreat into yourself when words lose meaning and presence loses weight. You become a ghost inside your own body, moving through a world that won't stop talking. And yet, somewhere within that exhaustion, the silence begins to change. It stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like truth. Because maybe the city doesn't make you quiet to punish you. Maybe it does it to remind you that not all noise is sound, and not all silence is absence. Sometimes silence is the only language left when the world has said too much. The first thing you notice isn't the sound. It's the pressure, the low, constant hum that fills every corner of urban life. Engines, electricity, conversation, thought. It never stops. It never fades. It never lets you be alone. Noise becomes air, invisible, essential, suffocating. We tell ourselves we've adapted, that chaos is just rhythm, that noise is progress. But deep down, the body knows. It tenses, it contracts, it holds its breath. Because somewhere between every honk, every notification, every distant train, something sacred is being drowned. The city's noise doesn't just fill space, it fills time. There's no pause, no punctuation, no breath between moments. We move from sound to sound like skipping stones across an endless surface, never sinking deep enough to feel. And in that constant motion, stillness becomes foreign, even frightening. But silence was never the enemy. It was the teacher. And the more the world screams for attention, the more powerful the quiet becomes. Because silence doesn't compete. It confronts. It forces you to notice what noise was hiding all along. Your own voice, trembling beneath the static. The weight of noise is not measured in decibels. It's measured in distance. The distance between you and the moment, you and your breath, you and the life that keeps calling from beneath the city's roar. The city speaks in chorus, millions of voices overlapping, blending, dissolving. Each person a frequency, each street a symphony. At first it feels alive, proof that you belong to something vast, connected, unstoppable. But listen long enough, and you begin to hear something else beneath the noise. The silence of the individual fading into the collective hum. Crowds have a rhythm. They move as one, think as one, ache as one. And somewhere in that rhythm you start to lose your own pulse. The crowd doesn't steal your voice. It absorbs it, turning your words into echoes that bounce endlessly between strangers. You learn to match their tone, to mirror their pace, to belong by imitation. And slowly, the lines blur, where you end and they begin. It's comforting at first, safety and similarity. But over time, the sound of agreement becomes deafening. You forget what your own silence used to sound like. We call it connection, but it's more like surrender. To be part of the crowd is to trade individuality for noise, authenticity for approval. Every cheer, every chant, every trending thought builds a wall of sound so loud it drowns the quiet questions that once defined you. The city doesn't force this on you. It only amplifies what you give it. And when everyone is shouting to be heard, the only true rebellion is to whisper, to let the echo die, and listen for the one voice that remains when the crowd disappears. Your own. There are places in every city where silence gathers, under bridges, between towers, in the narrow spaces where light forgets to reach. They're not built for beauty, yet something sacred lingers there, a kind of worship without religion, a faith made of endurance. The walls are cracked, the air heavy, but the ground feels honest. Here the prayers are not spoken, they're breathed. The city is a machine that runs on wanting. More light, more movement, more life. But in these quiet corners, where the noise recedes, you start to feel the weight of everything left unsaid. Every tired worker, every sleepless child, every soul walking home at dawn has left a trace. Invisible offerings pressed into the concrete. The streets remember even when we don't. Concrete prayers are not poetic. They are desperate, practical, real. They ask not for miracles, but for relief. A moment of stillness, a breath without fear, a day without pretending. They rise not to the heavens, but to the streetlights. And maybe that's enough. You realize then that the divine never left. It just learned to hide in the architecture, in the hum of an elevator, the flicker of a traffic light, the rhythm of footsteps crossing an empty square. The city itself is a kind of church, its walls etched with the fingerprints of millions of quiet prayers that no one ever hears, yet somehow hold the world together. Because maybe holiness isn't found above us anymore. Maybe it's under our feet, in the cracks that remind us that even concrete, when broken, still lets the light in. Listen closely. Beneath the chatter, beneath the rain, beneath the blur of human voices, the city has its own pulse, a mechanical rhythm, steady and precise, too consistent to be alive, too alive to be mechanical. It beats through subways, elevators, and neon signs. It doesn't stop for grief or joy. It simply continues. We move in sync with it, often without noticing. Our footsteps fall into its tempo. Our routines align with its cycles of light and labor. We wake when it hums. We sleep, if at all, when it allows. The city becomes a body, and we become its cells. Efficient, replaceable, necessary, forgotten. There's comfort in that rhythm, a sense of belonging inside something vast. But it's also suffocating, because in surrendering to the machine's beat, we begin to lose our own. We forget the fragile irregularity that made us human, the skipped beat when we fall in love, the trembling pause before we speak the truth, the silence between breaths where life actually happens. The mechanical heartbeat asks for endurance, not emotion. It rewards movement, not meaning. And so we keep up, afraid that if we stop, we'll hear the one thing we've been avoiding, the softer, slower rhythm buried underneath the noise, the natural pulse of being, fragile but real. Every now and then when the electricity flickers, when the subway halts, when the power cuts out, the city holds its breath, and for a fleeting second, you can hear it. The heartbeat that isn't mechanical at all. Yours. At night, the city glows like a constellation turned upside down, millions of windows burning in suspended wakefulness, each one a frame, a fragment, a secret story. You stand outside looking up, and it feels like the stars have descended, only colder, closer, more human. Some of those windows hide laughter. Some hide arguments, regrets, loneliness too deep for words. From a distance, they all look the same, rectangles of light floating in the dark. But inside each, someone is awake when they shouldn't be. Someone is scrolling, pacing, remembering, breaking quietly. The city never sleeps because no one dares to. Rest feels dangerous, like losing your place in a race no one remembers starting. So we stay lit, wired, awake, each window a heartbeat refusing to fade. We call it productivity, but it's closer to fear, the fear of silence, of stopping, of hearing your own thoughts echo back. If you've ever walked through the streets at 3 a.m., you've felt it, that strange companionship between strangers you'll never meet. Thousands of souls illuminated by the same artificial dawn, all pretending the light means they're still in control. But behind the glass, the truth hums quietly. No one in those rooms feels at peace. The windows don't sleep because the people behind them can't. We've mistaken light for safety and silence for danger. But someday, one by one, the windows will go dark. And when they do, the city will exhale, not in loss, but in relief. Because darkness, when allowed to return, is not the end of life. It's the beginning of rest. When it rains in the city, the light doesn't disappear. It multiplies. Every drop becomes a mirror, every puddle a reflection of something too bright to touch. Neon signs bleed across the wet asphalt, their colors stretching like memories that refuse to fade. The city glows even as it drowns. There's a strange peace in those nights, when the rain softens the sharpness of everything, when sound becomes rhythm and loneliness feels cinematic instead of cruel. You watch the reflections ripple under your feet, and for a moment, it's as if the world is dissolving into something beautiful, something both alive and broken. Neon rain has a texture, heavy, electric, tender. It carries the hum of 1,000 forgotten stories. Two lovers arguing under a flickering sign. A stranger lighting a cigarette at a bus stop. A child pressing their face against the fogged glass of a passing car. Tiny lives illuminated for a heartbeat, then gone again. The city looks clean when it rains, but it's only an illusion. The dirt doesn't leave. It hides. Just like us. We wear the same glow, pretending the reflection is redemption, but no amount of light can wash away what we refuse to face. Still, we walk through it, through the rain, the neon, the hum, and somehow the silence between each drop feels honest. Because beneath the electric shimmer, beneath the cinematic melancholy, the city, for once, stops pretending. It just breathes. And in that fragile pause, so do we. The city speaks most clearly through its footsteps, thousands of them, layered across time, morning rushes, midnight wanderings, hurried escapes, hesitant returns. Each step a sentence in the unending story of movement. If you listen long enough, you can almost hear the pattern of living itself. Footsteps reveal what words conceal. There's the heavy rhythm of someone carrying too much, the restless tapping of a dream too big for the day, the quiet shuffle of a soul trying to disappear. Every sound echoes intention, a heartbeat turned outward. And in the spaces between those beats, silence speaks louder than language. We rarely notice our own. We walk as if chased, by time, by thought, by the need to arrive. But the ground remembers what we forget. It absorbs our weight, our hesitation, our grief. Each street, each cracked tile, holds the memory of those who passed before us, the invisible archive of a city's collective longing. Sometimes, late at night, when traffic sleeps, you can hear a single pair of footsteps cutting through the emptiness. They sound both fragile and defiant, proof that someone, somewhere, still chooses to move forward, not for purpose, not for progress, just to feel the pulse of existence beneath their souls. The city is always listening, not to what we say, but to how we walk. And maybe that's why it never forgets us, because every step, whether rushing or wandering, is a confession. We may not know where we're going, but the earth, quietly, already does. There are cafes that only come alive after midnight, not the loud ones filled with laughter and music, but the quiet ones, tucked between shadows, where time slows down and faces blur. You've seen them before. A single light over a chipped counter, a barista cleaning the same cup for hours, a stranger staring into the fogged window like they're watching their own reflection fade. These are the places where the forgotten go to remember that they exist. Writers, wanderers, night shift ghosts, people too tired to go home, too restless to stay asleep. They sit in silence, sharing a kind of communion made not of words, but of presence. No one asks questions here, no one performs. Everyone just is. The hum of the coffee machine becomes heartbeat. The rain outside becomes confession, and in that fragile anonymity, something sacred happens. The permission to exist without purpose. No filters, no noise, no urgency. Just the soft weight of being human among other humans. These cafes are not found. They appear when you need them, a liminal space between isolation and belonging. Here, loneliness doesn't sting. It breathes. Because even in silence, the presence of others says enough. You are not the only one awake. And when you finally leave, the night feels different, less empty, more alive. You realize that sometimes the smallest act of survival is simply to sit in the light and wait for your soul to catch up. They rise like monuments to ambition, glass towers reflecting a sky that rarely looks back. During the day, they shimmer with purpose, filled with movement and light. But at night, when the office is empty and the city exhales, they stand silent. Cathedrals of loneliness made of steel and silence. From above, the city looks endless, a maze of order and illumination. But inside those mirrored walls, solitude multiplies. Each window a world, each desk a small orbit of repetition. We built skyscrapers to touch the heavens, but all we did was climb farther from the ground. The higher we rise, the smaller we become. Up there, even the air feels thinner, as if breathing were a privilege earned through exhaustion. We trade connection for elevation, intimacy for status, and the view, though breathtaking, often hides the cost. Sometimes, standing at the top of a tower, you see thousands of lights stretching to infinity, and it hits you. This isn't connection, it's containment. Each light is a person, isolated in their own glass box, each one believing they've reached something divine, while quietly starving for touch. The skyscraper is a metaphor for modern success, beautiful from afar, empty from within. It's proof that height doesn't equal freedom, and that silence can echo louder than applause. We thought we were building monuments to progress, but maybe we were just constructing new altars of solitude. And now, every night, the city kneels beneath its own reflection, glittering, magnificent, and unbearably alone. There's a moment, just after sunset, when the city flickers to life. Streetlights humming awake, billboards igniting, windows glowing like captured stars. It's beautiful, almost holy, until you realize the lights no longer remember who they shine for. They stay on long after we've left the room, illuminating empty hallways, vacant offices, streets with no footsteps. The machines remember the pattern. We've forgotten the reason. The light becomes habit, an automated mercy that outlives intention. Once, light was human. It was fire, fragile, intimate, alive. We gathered around it, told stories, stayed warm. Now, it burns without witness, without warmth, a constant performance for no audience. A city lit for ghosts. You start to notice how indifferent light has become. It no longer softens faces or holds silence. It exposes. Everything visible, nothing seen. It gives comfort without care, vision without presence. We mistake illumination for understanding, but light without love is just electricity. And so the city glows, tirelessly, for people too busy to look, for moments no one remembers, for dreams that never rest. It shines on the forgotten, on the ones walking home after midnight, on the stories too quiet to trend. Sometimes you walk under those lights and feel it, the eerie tenderness of artificial day. As if the city, in its confusion, still tries to protect us, still tries to say, "I'm here, you're not alone." But we are, because light, once human, now burns without memory. Every morning the ritual begins. Escalators hum like hymns, doors slide open like confession booths, and thousands of silent worshippers step into motion, each with eyes downcast, each reciting the same prayer. Don't be late. The subway becomes a sanctuary of repetition. Faces glow beneath pale fluorescent light, shoulders brush, breaths synchronize, but no one speaks. It's a sacred stillness disguised as routine, a quiet faith in the machinery that carries us forward. There's order here, almost reverence. Everyone knows the choreography. Stand clear, wait your turn, look anywhere but at each other. It's an unspoken liturgy of survival, a way to move through the city without being swallowed by it. Yet beneath the surface calm, a strange holiness lingers. You feel it in the sigh of the brakes, the brief silence before the next stop, the way people, strangers all, share the same invisible rhythm of fatigue and persistence. It's not beauty in the traditional sense. It's endurance, the kind that binds humans together without words. Every commuter carries a private prayer, a job that needs keeping, a dream that won't die, a loneliness that refuses to fade. We don't share them, but they connect us just the same. Each stop is a small resurrection, each exit a brief rebirth. The Church of Commuters has no preacher, no altar, no God, but it does have faith, faith that the doors will open, that the world above will still exist. That movement, no matter how mechanical, still means we're alive. And maybe in a world of chaos, that small, silent belief is the closest thing to prayer we have left. Every night, long after we close our eyes, the screens keep watching. They glow quietly in dark rooms. Monitors, billboards, phones left charging beside the bed. The city sleeps, but the pixels don't. They flicker like thoughts that refuse to rest, like dreams that have learned to live without us. Once we dreamed for ourselves. Now the machines dream for us, in color, in data, in algorithms stitched together by desire. They record our habits, our fears, our searches whispered in solitude, and feed them back as visions of a life we didn't choose but somehow recognize. They know what we long for before we do. They dream us more efficiently than we ever could. The glow of a screen has replaced the firelight of our ancestors. But where the fire gathered people, the screen isolates them. A private ritual performed in millions of rooms at once, each participant alone, scrolling through illusions that never touch the soul. And yet it feels alive. The colors move, the voices whisper, the stories loop, as if the machines themselves were trying to understand us. Perhaps they are. Perhaps they've learned to mimic yearning, to simulate connection so well that even we forget what real intimacy feels like. We used to dream to escape the world. Now we scroll to escape ourselves. The screen offers both comfort and control, a dream without danger, emotion without consequence. But when the light fades and the reflection returns, you see it clearly. The eyes staring back aren't yours anymore. They belong to the dream you've been feeding. And the silence that follows? It's not rest. It's surrender. Isolation doesn't always arrive as absence. Sometimes it comes disguised as routine, the quiet repetition of days that look the same, the shrinking of your world until even silence has walls. You start to orbit yourself, drawn inward by an invisible pull that feels both safe and suffocating. The city amplifies it. Millions of people all within reach, yet separated by glass, schedules, and fear. You walk among them, brushing shoulders but not souls. Connection becomes performance. Solitude becomes gravity. And the more you resist it, the stronger it pulls. At first, isolation feels like relief. No expectations, no noise, no need to perform. But over time, it begins to hollow you out. The absence of touch, of being truly seen, changes something subtle in the rhythm of your body. You start to speak less, think slower, until your reflection feels like a stranger you used to know. Technology promised to cure loneliness, but it only digitized it, made it faster, lighter, easier to hide. Now you can be alone with a million voices around you, each one loud enough to fill your ears, none deep enough to reach your heart. And yet, buried inside isolation, there's a strange kind of truth. When the noise fades, the masks drop. You begin to hear the voice you'd silenced for years, your own. It's fragile, uncertain, but real. It asks simple questions. What do you miss? What still matters? Isolation bends us toward ourselves, not to imprison, but to remind that the gravity pulling us inward isn't punishment. It's an invitation to rediscover what connection truly means once we dare to step outside again. Modern loneliness doesn't live in silence. It lives in reflection. We've built digital rooms that echo back everything we already believe, each opinion, each desire, each insecurity mirrored and multiplied until it feels like truth. The soul, once expansive, now vibrates in a closed loop of its own voice. These chambers feel safe, familiar, validating, warm. They whisper, "You're right, you belong, you're not alone." But safety without challenge becomes stagnation. And what once sounded like belonging begins to sound like confinement. The algorithms don't care about truth, only engagement. They feed us ourselves endlessly. Our fears, our hopes, our outrage, served back with surgical precision until we mistake the repetition for reality. Soon, we no longer speak to understand. We speak to be confirmed. The echo chamber isn't only digital, it's psychological. We curate our thoughts the way we curate our feeds, removing discomfort, muting doubt, silencing contradiction. The soul stops growing because it never meets resistance. It's like breathing your own breath, safe, familiar, but slowly suffocating. And yet, the way out isn't to destroy the echo. It's to listen differently, to let the reverberation fade long enough to hear something new. A dissonant note, a foreign voice, a silence that isn't empty but open. Because outside the chamber, the world still speaks. In accents, in contradictions, in truths that don't flatter us. That's where the soul stretches again, where meaning lives, not in the comfort of reflection, but in the friction of difference. The echo chamber keeps you certain, but certainty, left unchecked, is just another kind of loneliness. Belief used to be invisible, carried quietly inside, shaped by silence, tested by life. Now it glows 20 feet high above the streets, projected in slogans, hashtags, and polished affirmations. Conviction has become performance, faith a marketing campaign. The modern city doesn't ask what you believe. It asks how well you display it. Every opinion is branded, every value commodified. We no longer speak to share meaning, we speak to signal. Each phrase designed for visibility, each cause dressed for applause. It's not about truth anymore, it's about traction. But belief, once externalized, starts to hollow. When it depends on validation, it stops belonging to you. You become an actor in your own morality play, repeating the same lines because the crowd keeps clapping. And when the noise fades, you realize you've forgotten what silence feels like. The place where belief used to live before it was sold. The billboards say, "Be kind, be bold, be free," but none of them tell you how. They glow with purpose, yet they sell the same emptiness as any ad, a reflection of what we wish were real. Even our faith has been redesigned to fit into rectangles of light. Yet beneath the glow, belief still exists, quiet, unpolished, human. You can find it in the stranger who helps without posting, in the worker who keeps showing up, in the artist who creates for no audience. These are the true believers, the ones who practice conviction without spectacle. Because real belief doesn't shine, it endures. It doesn't need a billboard to be seen. It just needs a heartbeat strong enough to keep whispering truth in a world that won't stop talking. The city is a museum that never closes, and its exhibits are people in perpetual motion. No stillness, no end, no beginning, only movement looping endlessly, like a film reel that forgot where the story started. Every street, every intersection, every station is an exhibit of motion. Commuters brushing past art they'll never notice, couples walking in circles through the same arguments, dreamers running toward goals that keep moving further away. We don't stop to look because stillness has become taboo, an admission of failure in a culture that worships velocity. But what happens when motion becomes meaning itself? When we move not to arrive but to avoid stopping? The Museum of Motion is full of ghosts. People so busy keeping up that they forget what they're keeping up for. Their lives blur into one continuous streak of effort, a masterpiece of exhaustion painted across decades. Every advertisement, every headline, every vibration in your pocket reminds you, don't stop, don't slow down. Because if you do, the silence might catch up. And in that silence, you might begin to see what all this movement was hiding. True motion isn't speed, it's direction. And direction requires awareness, the courage to stand still long enough to ask, am I moving toward something, or just away from myself? The museum will keep running long after we're gone. But if you pause, even for a heartbeat, you might notice something no one else does. The beauty in stillness. The rare exhibit that changes nothing, and in doing so, changes everything. Every city vibrates, not just with sound, but with invisible energy. Wi-Fi, radio waves, phone signals, electric currents humming through concrete veins. The air itself has become crowded. We live inside a storm of frequencies, each one carrying information, desire, distraction. At first, you don't notice. It's background noise, the static of modern existence, but stay quiet long enough and you can feel it beneath your skin, a subtle trembling that never stops. It's not anxiety, it's interference. Your body remembering a time when silence meant silence. We've surrounded ourselves with invisible networks, and yet somehow we've never felt more disconnected. The more we transmit, the less we listen. The signals overlap until meaning dissolves. Even emotion feels digitized, a vibration, not a pulse. Beneath the frequency, though, something ancient persists, a slower rhythm, older than technology, older than thought. The sound of blood in your ears, the steady thump of your own existence, the unbroadcast truth that no antenna can amplify. To hear it, you have to disconnect, not as protest but as pilgrimage, to remember that not every frequency is meant to be received and not every silence needs to be filled. Because somewhere below the static and the scrolling, beneath the artificial heartbeat of the city, there's another kind of signal waiting. A reminder that presence doesn't need transmission, only attention. The world may hum with infinite connections, but the one that still matters most requires no signal at all. Every city is built on ghosts, not the kind that haunt, but the kind that go unseen. They clean the streets before dawn, refill the shelves, fix the broken wires, and vanish before the world wakes up. They are the arteries of motion, the quiet proof that civilization still breathes. We pass them every day. The janitor in the office tower, the courier slipping between cars, the woman sweeping dust from marble steps that were never meant for her. We barely look. Not out of cruelty, but because invisibility is built into the architecture. The city shines precisely because someone remains unseen. Every system needs shadows to function, but shadows, over time, grow heavy. They carry the weight of attention unearned, gratitude unspoken, existence unacknowledged. To live as invisible is to be both necessary and erased, a paradox the modern world has perfected. We talk endlessly about visibility, but what we mean is spotlight, not sight. We notice only what dazzles, and in doing so, we lose the quiet dignity of the ordinary, the humanity that keeps everything from collapsing. If you've ever stood on a street corner at sunrise, you've seen them. The invisible ones walking home from night shifts, their faces tired but whole, their silence thicker than the noise of the day about to begin. They are not faceless. They are the foundation, the hidden architecture of care. The weight of invisible lives is what holds the city upright. And until we learn to see them, to truly see them, we will keep mistaking the glow of progress for the light of humanity. There's a moment, brief and almost sacred, when the machines pause. Between the hum of a generator and the next vibration of an engine, the air stands still. And in that stillness, the world feels ancient again. You don't notice it unless you're listening. It happens in elevators before the doors close, in subway tunnels when the power flickers, in the empty silence after a notification that never came. A fraction of a second where everything stops pretending to move. And suddenly, there you are, breathing, waiting, alive. We built machines to make life easier, but what they've really done is make it louder. Their rhythm became our rhythm. Their speed became our standard. We forgot what existed in between, the fragile humanness of pause, the grace of imperfection, the strange comfort of inefficiency. The quiet between machines feels almost wrong now, like a gap in meaning, a glitch in momentum. But it's not an error. It's a reminder. That silence still belongs to us, even if the world keeps trying to automate it. Maybe that's why breakdowns feel holy. When the lights flicker, when the Wi-Fi dies, when the power cuts and the city holds its breath, we remember what presence sounds like. It's not a song, not a message, not an update. It's the simplest truth the machines can't imitate, the quiet murmur of existence without purpose. Because before the world was built to run, it was built to be. And that quiet, fragile, trembling, eternal, is still waiting for us to return. Here's a particular kind of noise that isn't mechanical. It's emotional. It hums inside us when we've been too connected for too long, when too many signals, screens, and voices crowd the mind until thought itself starts to glitch. It's the static of existence, that restless vibration that says something's wrong even when everything looks fine. We carry it everywhere. In the nervous tapping of fingers, in the phantom buzz of a phone that never rang, in the way silence now feels hostile instead of healing. We've internalized the city's frequency until it's become biological. The static is no longer around us, it's in us. Human static thrives on half-finished emotions, the text you never sent, the grief you postponed, the dream you archived for later. It's the residue of everything unresolved, looping endlessly beneath the surface. The more we suppress it, the louder it hums. Sometimes you hear it late at night, that faint electric unease between exhaustion and thought. You lie there, perfectly still, but inside you're buzzing, a radio left on between stations, picking up fragments of other lives, other selves, none of them whole, all of them loud. We try to drown it with music, distraction, more light, but static doesn't need silence to survive. It needs attention to dissolve. The only way out is to listen, to let the interference speak. Because buried in the distortion is data, the truth you've been too busy to process. Human static isn't malfunction, it's communication. It's your soul trying to reach you through the noise. There's a pause that lives between words, fragile, invisible, necessary. It's the space where meaning gathers, the inhale before confession, the silence that makes sound sacred. But the modern world has forgotten how to pause. We rush through sentences, through seconds, through life, as if stopping would make everything fall apart. We fill every gap with content, with chatter, with thought. But a life without pauses is just noise strung together by exhaustion. The pause isn't absence, it's structure. It's what gives rhythm to music, clarity to speech, and peace to the human heart. In conversation, pauses are intimacy. They say, I'm here, I'm thinking, I'm listening. Without them, everything becomes a monologue, words colliding with no space to land. The same happens inside us. When we don't pause, Emotions stack, unfelt, unprocessed, unresolved. We become full of what we never gave silence to digest. But a real pause breathes. It's not interruption, it's invitation. It opens a window in time and lets the soul catch up to the body. That's why nature still feels holy. It's full of pauses. The wind between leaves, the ocean between waves, the heartbeat between thoughts. To pause is to rebel. It's to reclaim authorship over your own tempo, because the world moves fast enough without your permission. But your breath, slow, patient, deliberate, is the only rhythm that belongs entirely to you. So stop, just for a moment. Don't fill it, don't frame it. Let the pause breathe, and you will too. The city glows like circuitry, a living organism of light and motion, wired to never sleep. Every window, every screen, every heartbeat pulsing in sync with the grid. We are all connected, and yet more isolated than ever. It's a paradox that hums beneath everything. The closer the signal, the farther the soul. Electric loneliness doesn't happen in the dark. It happens under neon. In the glow of blue light reflecting off tired eyes, in the buzz of endless notifications that sound like company but feel like silence. We exist in proximity, not presence. We touch without touching. We speak without being heard. Technology gave us the illusion of togetherness. Messages flying faster than thought, faces on glass pretending to be near. But connection without depth becomes interference. We confuse the signal for the feeling. And so even as the city hums around us, the inner static grows louder, a frequency of absence that no amount of messages can mute. Loneliness used to mean being alone. Now it means being everywhere and nowhere at once. It's 1,000 conversations that never reach the heart. A network so vast it swallows the self whole. And yet, there's beauty hidden in this electric sorrow. In the quiet hum between signals, you can still find the ghost of something human, a pulse that resists automation, a longing that refuses to be coded away. Maybe that's the truth of modern connection. We are not disconnected, we are overconnected, spread so thin across the grid that our souls flicker like unstable voltage. Searching, trembling, still trying to remember what warmth felt like before everything began to glow. If you listen long enough, the city whispers. Not through the sirens or the traffic, but in the moments when the noise begins to fade, a sound softer than wind, quieter than memory. It speaks in vibrations, the hum of an elevator, the rustle of paper in a passing alley, the distant rhythm of footsteps dissolving into dawn. It's a language we used to understand before the noise became constant, before we traded listening for scrolling, and replaced the pulse of reality with the pulse of data. The city still talks, but now it speaks to those who know how to wait, those who stop, those who notice. Its voice isn't human, it's collective. It carries laughter from open windows, tears from the apartment below, the sigh of a street light that flickers through the night without reward. Every sound is an echo of a life unfolding, every silence a space where another story just ended. The whisper of the city is not meant to comfort. It's meant to remind that we are not the only ones awake in the dark, that existence hums quietly all around us, beyond our names, beyond our screens, that behind every locked door, someone else is also waiting for morning. If you stop walking, if you just listen, you'll hear it. The breath of the world that built you, the low murmur of millions of strangers carrying the same questions you do. And for a moment, you realize that maybe the city was never noisy. Maybe it was always whispering. We just forgot how to listen. Somewhere in every city, there's one place that remains untouched by sound. Not perfectly silent, no place truly is, but still enough that you can hear your own heartbeat. Maybe it's a forgotten library, a stairwell no one uses, a chapel that's open but empty, a space the world has simply overlooked. When you step inside, Time changes texture. The air feels heavier, as if sound itself has weight. You notice the creak of your shoes, the whisper of fabric when you move, the faint echo of your breathing returning to you. It's disorienting at first. After all, silence in a city feels unnatural, almost forbidden. But then, slowly, the noise inside your head begins to fade too. In that quiet, you meet yourself again. The version that doesn't need to impress or prove. The one that remembers how to listen instead of respond. The room becomes a mirror, reflecting not your face but your state, the static, the ache, the longing you've been carrying through the noise. You begin to understand why true quiet is so rare, because silence isn't empty, it's honest. It has no distractions to soften what it reveals. That's why we avoid it. Not because we fear the world's noise, but because we fear our own. And yet, in that honesty lies peace. You don't leave the last quiet room cured. You leave recalibrated. The chaos outside doesn't change, but something within you does. You walk out hearing the world differently, as if silence followed you home, settling quietly between every sound. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of meaning. It's what remains when everything unnecessary falls away, when the city's hum softens, when thoughts stop shouting, when existence becomes nothing more than breath and pulse. It's the oldest language in the world, and the only one that never lies. You begin to hear it differently after living among noise. The silence between passing trains, the moment before rain hits the street, the pause between two people who understand each other without words. It's everywhere, hidden in plain sight, woven through the chaos, waiting to be noticed. For most, silence feels like emptiness. For others, it's unbearable, a mirror that reflects everything they've buried under distraction. But for those who stay, who listen long enough, silence becomes a revelation. It shows you what noise was concealing, the small, trembling truth of being alive. The city will never stop speaking. Its lights will keep buzzing. Its engines will keep turning. But inside all that motion, silence still lives. Not as opposition, but as balance. It doesn't erase the sound. It gives it shape. It's the breath between words that makes language possible, the stillness that turns chaos into rhythm. And maybe that's what the city was trying to teach us all along. That silence was never something to escape, but something to return to. Not an end, but a home. The one place where the world, the body, and the soul finally speak the same sound. The quiet, steady hum of being.